Hello guys. Today I'm gonna be filming a video that no one asked for, but I think as a musician it's like really important to like think about this at least once in your lifetime, and that's the topic of practice journals and how I personally utilize them. To start off, I just want to say that I haven't actually been using my practice journals because of the whole like whirlwind of the time of college app audition and like the audition process. So I'm yet to get back on my practice journal. Personally, as a musician, I find that practice journals are really helpful, especially because like my personality type, I'm the type that I have to literally record everything. First of all, it's like for everyone probably, it's really good for like progress checking and like recording which parts you need to improve on, which parts were good, and how you're feeling during that practice session. My personality type is extremely weird. I'm like planned out to the max, or I get really anxious. I love having everything written down. Even though I already know it, I love having everything written down. It just gives me satisfaction. And just take away the things that you think will be helpful for you and leave the things that are not, you know? I originally started doing a practice journal because I got into journaling, and I thought that it would be really helpful for me to like record not just like what I was playing, but like record what was going on in my head, like during that practice session, what I was thinking, if I was frustrated, if I was happy with my progress, you know? And so I started off with a little like tiny practice journal, this one, and I would just write in journal entries, but then it expanded to 2 journals, so now I have this one and this one. I think that I'll start with this huge one first. So how I like to do this is, let's go to September. This is 2020 September, so a long time ago, but so how I utilized it is that every month there would be like a monthly spread type thing. I would kind of have like an inspirational quote on the top because I used my practice journal a lot to kind of get through my burnout stage. Then I would label the month, have a calendar, and then every day I would record how much I practiced that day. To me, it was like satisfying to see all the numbers fill up, like 3 hours, 3.5 hours, like 1.5 hours. And then at the very bottom, I would record 3 goals that I would like to accomplish that month. So for example, this month, work on arm involvement in lower half of the bow, work on continuous vibrato, and the last one was varying vibrato. My long-term month goals, it would let me know what kind of techniques that I have to work on, or if I have like recordings due and stuff like that. I have daily pages. You're not gonna see any of the writing, but right here, I just write like practice journal on the top, and then I write the date, and then a lot of the times, this was something I started doing later, but on the top I would also write my goal practice time. My practice journal was separated into 4 parts. The first part is scales. I always love to include scales into my practice session, and I wanted to make that a daily habit. That's why I put it as a separate category, and that really helped and it helped grow my foundation a lot too. So I put scales, and then etudes, because my teacher used to assign weekly etudes to me, and even though my teacher doesn't assign them anymore, I like to sometimes work on them and sight read them and refresh my memory on the techniques that were taught to me. And then the third one is pieces, like chamber pieces, orchestral pieces, and solo pieces. That would all go under that. On the side, I would just bracket it and label what time I practiced and how long I practiced them for. Beneath every single thing I practiced, I would write what I worked on and what I need to improve on, my reflections and things like that. For example, right here, for the scale section on September 3rd, I did the A minor scale and arpeggio, 3rd, 6th octaves and harmonics. I said, my reflection was, I can see that the intonation is definitely getting easier for me as time goes on, but I still want to improve it because I don't shift in tune all the time, and I want to make my double stops consistent. And another thing that I wrote was like Tchaikovsky Capriccio Italian. That was an orchestral piece. I did slow practice and tried to work on texture and articulation, especially transition from triple rhythm to duple off the string rhythm. Right there, I could see like what I worked on and like what I think I need to improve on, you know. That was really helpful for me to plan my next day's worth of practice. And the last section on my practice journal always is takeaways. And this I used as like takeaways, not just musically, but for daily life in general too. So those takeaways are for like relating how everything eventually affects my practice life. So for this day's takeaway, I wrote like, I should not take a nap. Don't go on my phone during breaks because it burns me out and distracts me super easily. I should go more in detail about the pieces instead of just running the pieces through. So that's what this big thing is used for. Oh, and also whenever I had lessons, I would create a separate page called lesson notes. It looks something like this because I would record everything on voice memos, and right after the lesson, I would listen back to my lesson and take notes on it. But I would write like general notes about whatever she said in general, not musically, but also like nothing in specifically about pieces that I was playing, just like in general what I should fix. She would tell me the whole time to like lift my elbow. And then the next thing I did was like technique, which would be like scales, etudes, things like that. And then the rest of it, I would just label as the piece that we worked on and whatever points that she pointed out that I have to fix, and whatever and things that she like really liked that she pointed out multiple times. I would also write that down just so I know to keep doing that, you know? And then at the very end, I would also put down takeaways for my lesson. And then moving on to my second little journal, it's this one. What I like to do with this is to plan the next day's worth of practicing. And at that time, I will like look back at this thing and kind of process what I need to work on and what pieces need a lot more working on. And based on that, I'll record it in here and plan the next day's worth of practice. So usually I'll have like how many minutes or hours that I want to work on a certain like piece, and all the pieces that I want to work on and the specific aspects that I want to work on, I find a need to write that down, you know? So it gives me like future reference of like, oh, this is something that really needs work, or oh, this is a section that needs to get perfected. Personally, I tend to run through pieces a lot and just stop in the middle to like fix things. So I'll label my practice sessions like number 1, number 2, number 3, or sometimes I'll have like, oh, do this for like 30 minutes, do this for like an hour, you know, or I'll have it like, oh, do this from like 10:30 to 11:30, you know. I don't know, I'm just like really crazily detailed like that. That's what this is. I really like decorating my journals too, even though I'm horrible at art, or like my handwriting is also super messy, so it doesn't really fit with me. But I think this could be helpful for some people, but also it could be a burden for some people to feel that responsibility to having to do this like every single day, you know what I mean? But it matches with me and it's kind of fun for me. So if you guys were wondering or like pondering or concerned about like how you should start a practice journal, if you should start a practice journal, what you should put in it, I hope it helped a little bit. That's what I put in my practice journal. And things that I absolutely want to do is like insert little pictures, Polaroids of like concerts, people that I played music with, or like just write about some little silly situations that happen during like orchestra rehearsals and things like that, because I think that'll be really cute. That's it for today, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!